Welcome everybody to the channel. This is Phil Beckwith, the professional painter and decorator, on YouTube, coming to you with educational information, product reviews, all the usual, being an influencer. Today we're coming off the back of the last video that you might have seen there. Was it a few videos back? I'm not sure. Using the Bedeck Spray Daylight ceiling paint. Really good paint, really liked it, and I did say at the last video if I'd got enough paint I would be doing all this flat renovation using it because it went on a dream. But I like to review different products, and I've got, thanks to Mike Culpit from the Decorating Forum on Facebook and obviously his website, he's given me a voucher for some Valspar paint and said, Phil, you're an influencer. He says, can you try this paint out and let me know what your thoughts are on it, because he's been asked to get decorators, and there's probably a few of you that might watch the channel that have also had vouchers for Valspar paint. So I'm going to try it. I'm a very much a Tikkurila person when it comes to wall paints and ceiling paints, and I like my Bedeck paints as well. As I've tried that new spray, really good. We're not talking about Bedeck now. We're going to talk about this. I'm in a lucky position. I've got a flat that I've got various ceilings. I've done the bedroom, as you've seen in the playlist. I've already done the bedroom in Anti-Reflex 2 from Tikkurila. I've done the front entrance passage through that door using the Bedeck Spray Daylight, and now this bigger corridor passage all the way through. I'm going to give this Valspar Trade Vinyl Matte in pure brilliant white. I'm going to give this a go on the ceilings in here. Now, to be a fair comparison against the Bedeck, I'm going to also brush this. You're not going to see me painting it because we've seen me painting over the course of however long I've been doing videos now. It's not a case about painting, it's more of a case about I want to tell you what the paint's like. And me as an honest person, I don't want to say as I'm standing on this bicycle doing handstands, because I do give an honest review. If I don't like it, I'll tell you. If I do like it, I'll tell you how nice it is. So we're not going to lie. There's no endorsement. If I don't like it, I'm going to tell Mike, and if I don't like it, I'll also tell you on YouTube that it's not for me. But I'm going to give it a go. I don't want to say Valspar in the trade's been a bit of a laughing Mickey Mouse stroke DIY sort of paint. I know Valspar's an old name from years ago. My father, who's been in business since 1965, his apprentice that still works with us, who's been with us since 1966, they've heard of Valspar going back years ago, years and years before my time, and said that it was a good paint back then, but it fell by the wayside, and now it's been regurgitated, shall I say, back through the B&Q stores around the country. This is in the UK, but if you're in America, I think, do you already have Valspar? I think you already have Valspar. If you're in America, give us some comments. But no, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this out as a white matte. It says for ceiling and walls, so I'm going to give it a go on these ceilings. Now, I've mixed it up. It feels quite thick in the tin. I've bedded my brush in, and I've tried it on the wall just to see what the feel like is, going over some filler just to spot prime. Now, it did feel a little bit round. Now, in the trade, if you know what the term round is, it means it's a little bit thick. And going over these ceilings that have had cheap contract matte on before, I don't want to be having the paint pulling on me, and that's another trade term, as in not being able to flow out nicely and the application's a little bit harder. So what I've done, I've got my paint tub out. I'm using an old paint bucket from Tikkurila's Optiva 5. It's a 2.7 litre canister. I'll show you. I showed you before on the last video. It's an old one of that. I fill it up to about there, and that's what I work out of. Never work out the tins. One, it looks amateurish, and you want to look a professional even if you are an amateur. If you spill it, you're only spilling that amount of paint. It's a lot easier to work out of something like this, a paint bucket, than a paint can. And these paint buckets from Tikkurila are ideal because they're a big opening, handles away from you, so you've got plenty of. These are really nice. So reuse, recycle. Going off topic. It felt a bit round, which felt a bit thick. So I put literally a splash of water in it, mixed it up, and it feels a lot better. So for my first coat, I'm going to give it a little bit of a thin down, and it's not thinned down by much, and I've only thinned down the amount of paint that I'm using, and I'm going to see what it's like. When I come to the final coat, I will either thin it or keep it neat, i.e. thick, straight out the tin. But I'll let you know. We're 5 minutes into me waffling about what I'm doing and everything. I'm going to crack on with this ceiling. The next time you'll see me is just giving you an update on what the ceiling was like to paint, and then we'll come back another day when I get a second coat on the ceiling. Then we'll do a conclusion roundup like I've done with the other video, like I did with the bed deck. So 10, 15, 20 minutes I'll be giving you a review of what these paints are like, and also showing you how it's all coming together on this playlist for flat renovation. I can't say yeah, alright then, bye. Right, I said I'd come back after I got the first coat on. I'll sit on the fence on the first coat. Sit on the fence. One, I'm glad I put a bit of water in it to make it easier to apply, but I'm hoping that touch of water to it, and it was only a splash into that bucket of paint, I'm hoping that that's not affected the paint for the opacity. And when I say opacity, the ability for it to cover. The ability for it to cover marks. Now, where I've gone over the ceiling and the Merc, I might have just taken a highlighted relief off of the contract emulsion, and you just see a little bit of a dark bare plaster showing through. There's certain areas that paint's not really covered it as well as I'd like to have done. And the other thing is, it's still drying, and I'm looking, because I talk about flashing, and that's why I'm doing these ceilings, brushing it. Oh, with one hand, not two. Brushing it, because if you're going to get flashing, you're going to get it with a brush. Now that little bit of a ceiling under here, just there, as I'm standing, you won't see it. I'll just lift myself up on me. Oh, I wish I was born a little bit taller. I wish I was a boy. You know that song by whoever it sang it. I wish I was a little bit taller. I can see brush marks, i.e. flashing, where it's always kept at wet edge, but where you brush one way and then come back into yourself as your crow's nest when you're doing a ceiling in your crow's nest in every direction, like a wicker basket, like that. I can see where a brush has gone back into itself, even though that paint has kept a wet edge going across. When I say a wet edge, you're keeping the paint wet all the way along the section you're doing. You're not letting it dry off then coming back to it. I'm working it and I'm keeping a wet edge. I can see bits of flashing. That Bedek spray daylight, that wasn't thinned, that went on lovely, and I couldn't see any flashing with that. We've got the same ceilings, we've got the same dirty white contract ceilings. Let's see what it's like when I come back and give it a second coat. But at the moment, I'll say sitting on the fence. I'll see what it's like. I'll see what it's like when it's dry and I can get a second coat on. Hopefully the second coat I might get away with not putting any water on, and then we can give it another coat and it's bodied up lovely, i.e. the opacity bodies and it looks perfect. But as I'm looking at some of it now, I'm a bit sceptical. Have you tried this paint? What do you think? What's your views? There's no way I could have got that on that bare contract matte emulsion straight out the tin, so I needed to pour a bit of water to it. But that Bedek I didn't need to touch, that was perfect. It does say you can spray it. It's sprayable. It'd be interesting to know what you think it's like when you've sprayed it. But for now, let's see what it's like when we give it a second coat and we can do a roundup and a conclusion. Not a conundrum, a conclusion. See you later. Hello, another day, another dollar. Let's call it round two. Obviously next day from when I first coated all this ceiling with Valspar vinyl matte. in the Brilliant White. I said, I was sitting on the fence yesterday. I've come in today, I'm having a look. I've probably not got the best light. We're losing the lights late afternoon now. I'm probably losing the best light to actually see whether I can see any flashing. But I can't see anything too critical, which is a good sign. I've actually got my paint now to coat up this straight out the tin. I'm going to see how it goes straight out the tin. I've got a tendency, I want to put a bit of water to it, and with it being a trade paints are more geared up for adding a bit of water to make it easier to apply. I want to do the one and the other. Yesterday I did a bit of water into it to apply it over that contract mat. It went on all right. I can see certain areas that look a bit shadowed, and when I say shadowed, where there were dirty spots, dirty areas, that's showing through. I'll call it grinning through. There's little bits across there I can actually see. It doesn't look like it's covered. I'm not expecting it to cover for one coat. So for this second coat, I'm going to go straight out the tin. The only bit that was thin was the small amount that I wiped back yesterday, and I'll see how I go. I've got my sneaky suspicion is it's going to pull a bit on me and I'm going to struggle brushing it. If you were cutting in with a brush and rolling it, you'd probably say you can manage. But if it's a bit too thick with a roller, you could get that little bit of an orange peel. Trial and error, whether you need any water to it or not. But let me see how I go, and then we'll just do a conclusion what I think of this paint. But so far, it's a good white, Brilliant White. I have gone over certain areas with my Merca Gold Flex sanding pad, just to sand any little bits that I saw. And there's no powder residue coming off it like we were getting in the room through there with the Bedeck. What's in it? I would say that the Bedeck's a drier paint, so it is going to be more like a contract stroke, flatter finish. Vinyl matte has got that slight vinyl content in, I can't even say it, slight vinyl content to it that makes it that little bit more harder wearing than a contract flat paint. Hence why you might see a little bit of flashing with the brush marks, but it's not powdering up when I sand it. It's not a chalky paint because it's got that vinyl content. But we'll see, we'll see. This paint is more ideal for your ceilings and walls, high traffic areas, that it's not quite a scrubbable matte, but it is a paint that's that little bit more of a step above a contract cheap paint. So that's why I'm doing it on these ceilings. Let's see what they're like. I've waffled on enough. Let's get cracking. Time is money. Right everybody, second coat's gone on. If I say it's soaked in like blotting paper, does anybody know what blotting paper is? Younger people probably don't know what blotting paper is, but I'm going to say it's soaked in like blotting paper. Could I have done with a splash of water in it? Quite possibly, to make it a bit easier to brush. Have I got away with it? Yes. What do I think how it's covered? I think it's covered fine. Quite impressed with that. I like the colour. It's white. I like the colour. It's a bright white. It actually looks really nice as a white, because you know some whites can look a little bit grey, even though they say Brilliant White. This is actually a nice white finish. I'll just say pure Brilliant White. That's good. Application wise, yeah, I was happy enough with it. I had to work hard. I struggled actually seeing where I was going, a bit like the Bedeck. As I was putting it on, the Bedeck Spray Daylight, as I was putting it on, I was struggling to actually see whereabouts I was going. More of the skill of me, the skills with a brush, 4-inch brush, using that Eco Union brush. I could actually feel where the wet edge was, so I could work a section coming all the way along and then drop onto these flanks down here. I don't call them flanks, you know what I mean, sides. So I knew where I was actually working. I knew where I was. I'll get it out in a minute. So that was fine. The actual feel, I've been feeling these are dry. the actual feel of the vinyl mat's actually a nice feel to it. It's not dry, which I wouldn't expect it to be. It's not a contract mat. So there's a nice feel to it. That should give you enough hard weariness because it's got that vinyl content in it. And the better the paints, it's more of the titanium oxide that's in the paint. That's what makes paints more expensive. If you've got Farrow and Ball, 100 quid a tin, they put a lot of the titanium oxide in it, and that's what costs a lot of money. That's what makes paints better quality than a cheap contract. Not sure how much is... Probably not. I mean, how much is a 5 litre tin of this? Is it under 30 quid? Top of my head, it's about 30 quid. Might be about 26. Just check. So quality wise, it's not a vinyl matte paint that's an expensive one, but has it done what it says on the tin? Yes, it has. Am I quite impressed with it? Yes, I am. Have I got any negatives about it? Only that the flashing element, when you start talking about vinyl mats, to me, and that's why I've done this sealing all the way through with a brush, because I wanted to see how it flashes. The Bedex Spray Daylight, I couldn't really see anything. With this, you can see how I'm looking for it. I can just see where brush marks have blended in from a drier spot to a wet edge, and that's where you get your brush marks and your flashing. If I was rolling it, that would probably show a little bit of a roller pattern, you know, bands of the roller. I think a splash of water would keep you a wet edge for longer, but does that compromise the opacity stroke the coverage of going over grubby white ceilings that were there before? Quite possibly. But on the whole, it's not a bad paint. I have to say, Mike, if you're listening, it's not a bad paint at all. I'm not one for vinyl mats, and I would say I've not probably used a vinyl mat for years. Brian, who works for us, who's been with us since 1966, I've been going on about this, he used some only a few months ago that was Dulux vinyl mat, and he said to me, he says, Phil, it's back to out, well, it's not back, it's no different than what it was a number of years ago when we stopped using Dulux. You can't brush small areas without it looking brush marky, and that bit of if I call a suede effect, where you put in your brush on every direction, it's called crow's nesting. When it dries, you can see where your brush marks have been, and that's why we moved away from Dulux. The only time we really use Dulux is probably diamond matte when it's needed. But that's why we've not used a vinyl mat for a while. Our main paint would be an Optiva 5 from Tikkurila or something on that similar line. Isomat do their paints. And Crown Clean Extreme's quite good as well. But you're looking at a little bit more expensive paint. But what's this like? I always work from the back and wipe it off. Don't work out the tin. It's not bad. It does say you can spray it, water-based. I'd like to spray it, see what it's like. I can't really do any spraying here, but it is a sprayable paint. You would have to dilute to taste, as I say, but on the whole, it's not a bad paint. It'll be interesting to see how it stands up for this being a rental, particularly on these slopey ceilings when people catch them, but I'm a decorator, I can sort it. I'll say thanks for listening. There's some videos probably coming up there. This, give it a try if you've not tried it. If you're looking for a vinyl mat that's not going to break the bank, if you're a DIY or an amateur, the videos up there, I bet they are. Give it a go. It's not a bad paint at all. It'd be interesting to see what it's like actually using it as a colour, a mixed colour, and they have a range of colours that are really nice. So if you go into B&Q, look at their colour range. They've got some really nice colours. And on that note, I'm going to say, have you enjoyed it? Give us a like. I've got some other paints from Valspar going to be used on this job, and we'll see what they're like as well. Does that interest you? Give us some comments, feedback. I like feedback, I like talking to you. So videos there. I'll say over and out. It's not a bad paint. I'm quite impressed. See you on the next one.